Like a marathon is a perfect metaphor for this. So I tell myself statements like I have, I will, I am. So I told myself I am an Ironman. Like I've already visualized myself on the top of Mount Everest. I can see it happening.
Did you visualize us grabbing coffee this morning? Antarctica is very cold. Sri Lanka is not very cold.
It's not very cold.
From my research, there's a 55-degree difference.
Oh, that's an excellent question. But I've failed many more times than I've succeeded. One of my heroes is Bear Grylls, and he's basically mentoring me. I believe in having mentors, not just for adventure. Everybody has ups and downs. Everybody goes through failures. Financially abundant life is an adventure. That's an extremely good question. Just to break the world record for the Adventurers Grand Slam. There's a business model in which you can use to monetize your career. I got 125 rejections. Yes, of course. I got a lot of heat for it at the beginning. Like, what the hell are you doing? Very good that you've done your research, actually.
Of course.
Very, very good.
Always.
I appreciate that. That is the mentality of an abundant person. And you've done fantastic, by the way, David. I really admire you. Like,
boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my podcast, Coffee's on Me, David Quan, where I strive to give guests legacy-worthy interviews that listeners can enjoy while cooking, commuting, relaxing, or walking their pets. I hope Santa has managed to track everyone down to give us all the great presents that we deserve, and that we can all look back to 2022 and look forward to 2023 with a lot of happiness. My guest and I are enjoying a cappuccino at Clare College, University of Cambridge. We have reached 4,000 podcast downloads last week, and if you have been enjoying the discussions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, please do consider leaving a review and nominating a guest by contacting me via my Linktree, David Quan. A highlight has actually been seeing this podcast on people's recent Spotify Wraps for 2022. I cannot thank the guests enough for their courage and insights. My guest today is someone who's always up for a challenge. Hassan Esufally is a master's candidate in business and entrepreneurship at the University of Cambridge, who has become the first Sri Lankan in history and one of around 300 people worldwide to run a marathon on all 7 continents by running some of the hardest marathons in the world, including one in Antarctica. He has also done an Ironman and planned to summit Mount Everest in 2025. On the travel front, he has been to over 65 countries and have a goal to visit every country in the world. Finally, he aims to achieve time, location, and financial freedom by age 35. Most recently, he has been awarded a fellowship at the Royal Geographical Society. Hassan, I'm sure you will outlast me in any race, but also this discussion. But for now, welcome to my podcast, Coffee's on Me, David Quan.
Hi, David. Thanks a lot for the very warm introduction, and lovely to be here. And thanks for the coffee.
You're very welcome. It is not a scam, right?
No, not by any means. And you're very warm and kind, and it's nice to be here.
Thank you very much. Well, Hassan, you've got an incredible amount of experience doing all sorts of different things across continents, but maybe for the audience's sake, could you just give an overview of your athletic career, basically?
Right. Okay. So, essentially, I grew up in Sri Lanka, and I did my high school in Sri Lanka. And when I was in high school, I was like the sports guy, basically for the school. I played tennis. I was tennis captain. I did athletics. I did football. Swimming, tennis, and a variety of other sports as well. And then I went to the University of Melbourne for my undergraduate level. And when I was at the University of Melbourne, I was playing tennis. I eventually captained in my final year. And then I saw an ad in the paper for the Melbourne Marathon. And I went down to my friends at Ormond College and I said, I want to try this. And what they said was that, you're not going to be able to do it in 2 months. You're doing so many other things. You're playing tennis, you're hiking, you're doing a variety of things. But I'm a very determined person. I said, I'm going to try it, and I'm going to do it anyway. And then when I finished the race, the feeling of accomplishment, achievement, and satisfaction at the end was just so amazing that I had the goal and the idea to do the 7 continents after that. And the same friends who told me that I couldn't do it on a night out later on, they were like, Hassan, you proved me wrong, and I respect you that much more for it. And I was like, it was not about proving anybody wrong. It was just about proving myself right. And I think that's when the real story began about running the marathons. And eventually I had a goal to do the Ironman prior to the 7 continents. one thing just led to the other, really. But I've always liked sports, and I've always liked health, and I've liked fitness. I like adventure. I like traveling. So yeah.
I think later on in the chat, I'd love to touch on how you're trying to monetize your current business and also some of the charitable work that I find incredibly impressive. But for now, let's just go back to that first marathon in Melbourne.
Yes.
It was your first marathon.
Yeah.
What were you feeling before starting it? Were you confident that you were able to finish it in a good time? Or
no, I wasn't. In the sense, I had. It was not about being confident. It was not about being confident or about finishing it in a good time. It was more about just about finishing it. And I wasn't very confident. I was actually very nervous at that time. And I think that's something that's so important because when you're taking on a new challenge and you're unfamiliar with it, you kind of have that like flight or fight feeling of am I going to run away from this challenge or am I going to step up and face it? And I've always been someone who's just gone after what I wanted. And I think with the marathon as well, even though I felt extremely nervous, and in hindsight, I probably didn't even know what I was doing in terms of the nutrition and the training, etc., compared to what I know now. I still believe that I could do it, and I just went after what I wanted. And yeah, but I was nervous. Very nervous.
Obviously, your friends had doubted you at the time, but. Yeah. I know it's hard at that point to anticipate all the subsequent kind of achievements that you've got, but what were you actually trying to achieve by taking on that challenge?
I wanted to it was a personal challenge really for me to just be able to finish a marathon because in the statistics are like less than 1% of people in the world actually have done a marathon.
Far less than one.
Yeah. And I just wanted to do something that was difficult, that was uncomfortable for me, and that was something that was new. And
I guess what I find quite inspiring about that is you basically embarked on this journey in university when a lot of people have the perception that you need to start very young and, be very disciplined as a kid. And I know you said you were a sporty kid, but it seems like it wasn't until in your adult life or early 20s that you were able to find this passion.
Yes, exactly. And honestly, David, it was not just about running a marathon for me. It was more about being able to show that anything is possible. Running a marathon is just one part of it. It's more about the mental fortitude that comes from that. The fact that if you can accomplish a certain goal, then you can accomplish another goal in another area of your life, like in your business life or your career or your finances or any area of your life. Because like a marathon is a perfect metaphor for this. In the sense that it is like it is because it takes dedication, it takes perseverance, it takes persistence. You go through ups and downs, you go through different emotions. I would say you probably those are multiplied tenfold in an Ironman. But I think that to start off with as an endurance challenge, the marathon is perfect for getting training to endure the hardships and challenges of life. And I think that's something that endurance sports teaches you.
In one of the interviews of you, I read that you mentioned that you are someone who is big into visualization.
Very much so.
What does visualization mean in the context of running a marathon? Like before you start a race, are you picturing yourself crossing that finish line? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a meditation process that I do every single day as well. So it's a 3-step meditation process. So the first step is I think of 3 things in the morning that I'm grateful for, 3 achievements or 3 people that I've met or something like that. In the second step, I think of goal setting. So I think of like 3 goals that I want to achieve. In the context of a marathon, I would say like yes, crossing the finish line or something like that. And in the final step is actually visualization, which is I visualize myself having already achieved those goals, those future goals, as if they've already happened in the present. So I tell myself statements like I have, I will, I am done this X, Y, Z even before it's happened, and that and kind of manifests itself. So I told myself I am an Ironman even before I had started training for the Ironman. And I told myself that I have crossed the finish line in Antarctica, and I ran around in my room with the Sri Lankan flag in my room, pretending it was minus 35 degrees, when it was actually 30 degrees. And that's exactly how it happened in the South Pole. So I'm big into visualization. Yes.
Why do you think that that routine works for you?
Because I think that I believe in the law of attraction, and I believe in the universal laws, the 12 universal laws. And I think that's super important, because having that mindset of telling yourself you are what you want to be in the present, as if it's already happened in the future. Telling yourself that you are what you want to be in the present, as if it's already happened, is kind of makes it happen. Obviously, you have to put in work behind it.
Yeah.
It doesn't just magically appear. You have to work. But if you do it with intention, it actually works out. I've already visualized myself on the top of Mount Everest. I can see it happening. I can see the color of the suit that I'm going to wear. Who's going to call me? All those things.
Did you visualize us grabbing coffee this morning?
Well, I didn't visualize Fitzwillies, if that's what you're asking. But I mean, I do this for big goals, But yes, I did write down in my diary. I have an appointment with David. So.
I think it's one thing for me to ask about your best practices, but I think a lot of these best practices are going to reveal itself for the audience as we talk more about your experiences. So I just want to move to your preparation for the Antarctica marathon.
Yeah.
So Antarctica is very cold. Sri Lanka is not very cold.
It's not very cold.
From my research, there's a 55-degree difference.
Yes.
So I understand visualization. You can, visualize yourself running in that condition, but physically there is a disparity depending on what environment you train. Yeah. And I read about how you found this factory owner, and then, they put your treadmill in the back of the Jeep and then drove to the factory, and then you went inside an ice blast refrigerator and ran on it in minus 20 degrees. Can you tell us more about how you were able to mentally and physically prepare for a completely different environment?
Oh, that's an excellent question, but that's exactly how I prepared, essentially. In terms of going to Antarctica, like you just said, I took a treadmill, put it inside an industrial freezer, and ran it in minus 20 degrees. And essentially what that did was that it helped me prepare my body and my mind for what the conditions in Antarctica would be like. To be honest, I found the perfect places in terms of practical help. I learned the perfect places where I could keep my mobile, my gels, my water, so it wouldn't freeze. In terms of mental, obviously, then I knew how cold it would be, because I'd obviously never been to that level of cold before, minus 25 degrees. So, in terms of mental preparation, obviously, being in that freezer, and seeing what it was like. Running for about 1 hour in the treadmill really gave me that kind of the feeling of how it might be like in Antarctica. Of course it was you can't really say it was a direct comparison. There are some differences in terms of the wind and in terms of the snow blindness, because in Antarctica obviously it's in the summer, it's got minus 25 degrees. You have the sun is glaring you have 24 hours of sunlight, so essentially when you're running, the sun reflects off the ice, so you have to wear goggles the entire time, otherwise you can get snow blindness. Also on top of that, there's wind, there was a storm on the day, and obviously your feet go into the snow. It's kind of like running on sand essentially, but except it's snow, and then there's ice as well, so you've got to adjust to those different conditions. I did a lot of other things like beach running. I had spikes in my shoes. I had Everest Camp 2 gear for my gear as well. So running in that freezer gave me the idea of what kind of gear I should use as well. So.
Did you seek medical advice though?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Of course, and I had insurance and all that, just in case.
One of my favorite books of concept is Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, I've read that. Viktor Frankl.
Yes, exactly. So
I read a lot as well. So.
I mean, a very simplified version for anyone who hasn't read it is Viktor Frankl went to survived the Holocaust, and he was reflecting upon the differences between survivors and non-survivors. And you would expect that the fittest, healthiest people would be the one who survive. But actually it's the people who have meaning and have a higher purpose. So for you, what is the higher purpose, if any, whether that's to represent your country, whether that's a personal fulfillment or a charitable endeavor?
I mean, for when I did the 7 continents goal, I had 3 reasons for doing it. Essentially, number 1 was to do something amazing for my country and become the first Sri Lankan in history to be able to do this,
which you have achieved already.
Thank you. And then the second one was to show other people that anything is possible, and that to live adventurously. And I think that is my real message. When I talk about living adventurously, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to run a marathon in Antarctica or do an Ironman or travel to over 60 countries, or climb mountains or whatever. It just means you have to go outside your comfort zone. It means that take that risk, take the chance. Apply for that university course that you wanted to apply for. Learn that new language. Read that new book. Ask that person out that you like. Simple things, things that just take a little bit of courage, but it requires you to go outside your comfort zone, and I wanted to share that message. And obviously, third was obviously to raise money for underprivileged children. I helped them through UNICEF, and I fundraised for them through the Ironman in 7 continents as well. So, yeah.
I'm gonna give a little description of the world's hardest marathon, the Inca Trail.
Sure.
But as I read the description, I know it sounds difficult, but I really want you to think, how can you, bring yourself back to that moment when you were there and describe to us what that moment felt like, what that moment sounded like, what it looked like. Try really bring us in the moment. So I'm just going to give some general vague description.
Sure.
So on that trail, you twisted your ankle halfway. It's a trail that traditionally takes 3 nights and 4 days to walk, with runners given a time limit of 14 hours to complete what is considered the hardest marathon in the world. When asked why it was so difficult, you mentioned about Pandora's box of non-ideal running conditions. And I quote you saying, "You're starting in complete darkness at 4 a.m. You're running through the Amazon rainforest so your clothes get wet, and you can get lost from the track, and there's obviously altitude to deal with. It's difficult to breathe, and coming from Sri Lanka where there is no altitude, it's not easy." Can you paint a more vivid description to help us really understand what you were feeling, seeing, hearing, smelling?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely do that. That's a fantastic question as well, David. So essentially, like you said, you're starting in like complete darkness at 2 a.m. You get woken up by this Peruvian porter who knocks on your tent, and you wake up and you have this breakfast. You've already hiked 13 kilometers the previous day to get to the point of the trail where we'd start. Obviously, that hike is done very slowly. So you wake up at 2 a.m., you have breakfast by 3, and then you start your run at 4. You have 13 hours, by the way, not 14 to finish the race. So you have to get to the end of the race at Machu Picchu at 5 p.m. They shut the park because it's a national park. They shut the park after that. So you got to make sure that you're there. Just 4 a.m. you're starting. You have a pitch black light. The race director starts the race. You can get lost, obviously, because it's dark and there's no signage on that. Actually, I did get lost at the first bit. I ran, I think, about for 5 minutes on a different path, and I eventually realized there's nobody here, so I turned back. Then you're running through this amazing cloud forest. So it's very beautiful. It's very hard, but it's also very beautiful. When the sun starts to rise at about 6 a.m., you are above this cloud forest, so you can see like clouds below you on the valley, in the Sacred Valley, which is in the Andes mountain range in Peru. Very, very beautiful. And then after that, you have you actually run through the Amazon rainforest, because part of the Inca Trail is through the Amazon, in the Amazon basin. So you have cold and rain in the morning, then you have warmth and sunrise, and again you have rain on the Inca Trail when it's in the rainforest, and you're also gaining altitude there. You're really breathing very heavily, like that. And then when we got to the top at Dead Woman's Pass, there was also snow. So you have to prepare for that as well, because you can get hypothermia because you've just come out of the rain, and then you have to you're in freezing cold snow, minus below zero. Then after that you've got to run down to Puyo Patamaka, which is the final pit stop before the final part of the race, and all of that is downhill. So you got to be careful of your knees and watch where you're stepping and stuff. And then when you're running through that, again, you're running through these amazing, Incan castles and the pathways, and it's really beautiful, but it is very hard. And I remember I got to the final pit stop, the gate cut off with 2 minutes left to spare. So if I didn't make that gate cut off, I wouldn't have finished at Machu Picchu. And to become an official finisher for the 7 continents, obviously you need to finish the race as an official finisher. I got there with 2 minutes to spare. And then I eventually got up to Machu Picchu through a gate called the Sun Gate, and when you go past the Sun Gate, that's when you see your first glimpse of Machu Picchu, and then it's amazing. Like you see it from the top, and then the world wonders at the bottom, and then you make your way down to the finish line. It's really, really great, fantastic. And then running with the Sri Lankan flag was exceptional.
I mean, I've never reached your intensity in terms of sport, but I do play basketball at a relatively good level, and one of the things that I enjoy...
You play at an amazing level. You played at Cambridge Blue, which is amazing.
Thank you. So one of two of the things that I like about sport is when I'm in it, I'm in the zone, I forget about everything else in life and I'm focused. And the second thing I like about sport, at least for me, for basketball, is the instant feedback that you get from sport. I can shoot a shot and I know instantly whether that shot has gone in, whether I shot it too far, too close, too left, too right, whatever it is. And whereas that's different to, writing a book. Like I know that you're also writing a self-help book where you could be going through hours but not really seeing how the picture's coming together.
Yeah.
So on that second point about feedback, as you're going through something of that arduous length, what are the signs of feedback of whether you're going on track, whether you're meeting your progress, and how do you then adapt based on whatever feedback you have been getting?
I wear this watch, which is one of the... are you talking about emotional feedback or statistical feedback?
Any kind of feedback.
Okay, so I have a watch that I wear through the race, which gives me statistical feedback on my heart rate, on my cadence, on my speed, the distances I've covered, etc. So that really helps me stay on track in terms of the progress of the race. In terms of emotions, I mean, I know that every single difficult race that I'm going to do, I'm going to get to a point where I just think, I want to give up. I just want to stop. Like that happens in everything, and I've noticed that in anything that I've succeeded in, I've always failed at it first. I have gone through many fail. I've failed many more times than I've succeeded in anything. Even with getting into Cambridge, I actually got rejected the first time, and then I applied again, and I got in, and I was able to get into a better course. And if I got in the first time, I would have had to do my entire course during online, basically, because of COVID. So actually, it was a blessing in disguise. And I think that failure is part and parcel of success. And there have been many times, like I said, on the Inca Trail, where I've twisted my ankle and failed, and I know it's going to happen. And there have been many, even in the Ironman, there were many times where I just was like, I want to stop. But then you think of why you started, and I write them down, the reasons when I begin any goal, whether it be doing an Ironman, getting citizenship, applying to Cambridge, whatever it is. I write down why I started this, and I think of those things in those difficult moments, and I just think of putting one foot in front of the other, putting one pedal stroke in front of the other, swimming one stroke in front of the other, and then getting it done eventually. And then the visualization also helps as well. So those are the in terms of the how I measure if I'm coping well or not.
I mean, it must be very fulfilling to now sit here and kind of reminisce on those moments, and I'm sure you can remember the challenges and the pain very vividly and physically. But nevertheless, I think it will be interesting now to think a bit ahead. So one of your other goals is to basically climb Mount Everest by 2025.
Yes.
So as we were reflecting on, it was great to reflect upon, but now we're in real time we have this challenge, we have this problem. And can you maybe walk me through, we're now about to start 2023, what is the plan to ultimately reach that?
Right, so that's an excellent question again, David. So basically, to climb Everest, you need to do some pre-Everest mountains, and the way that I've been able to design so I through Cambridge I've met some amazing adventurers, like one of my heroes is Bear Grylls, and he's basically mentoring me Now, I met him at the Cambridge Union, and he's been fantastic. The other one is Nims, who's climbed 14 peaks. And there's another fantastic gentleman. His name is Mustafa Salame. He's also mentoring me as well. So essentially, the way that I've designed it is that the first step is to climb Kilimanjaro. And I'm doing that in March next year if the funding comes through. The reason I'm doing that is because Kilimanjaro gives you the ability to know that your body can handle high altitude. And obviously Everest is the highest in the world, so Kilimanjaro helps you with that. The next one is to climb Mount Elbrus or Mont Blanc, which is in France. The reason for these is that it helps you in terms of learning winter alpine skills. So in terms of learning to work with carabiners and crampons in your shoes, climbing to the mountains, learn technical mountaineering skills essentially.
Other equipment's different depending on which one you're hiking.
Essentially, yes.
Oh.
A little bit,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. And then the third one is Aconcagua. Aconcagua is a mountain in South America, the highest mountain there. And the reason for this is that it helps you come to grips with high winds, high altitude, and high cold as well. And then the final mountain behind that is Denali, which is like a mini Everest essentially. And then I'll probably do Everest after that. So there's a clear progression. So it'll be Kilimanjaro 2023 March, Elbrus or Mont Blanc 2023 June, Aconcagua 2023 December, Denali 2024 April, and then Everest 2024.
I like to zone in on the mentoring that you've been receiving from people like Bear Grylls. So, in again one of the interviews that I read about you, so you had role models. So you were 8 years old and you remember reading about like Sir Edmund Hillary.
Yes.
And Tenzing Norgay, and thinking that those people were superhuman. So those people are obviously people who you never knew on a personal level, but they still inspired you. But now you're in a position where people who have done extraordinary feats like Bear Grylls and others actually know you on a personal level.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between having a more abstract mentor in the sense of you don't know them personally versus people who you can just call and almost be real time now?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to have this network and the fact that I have it at Cambridge.
I think both are important, but they're offer slightly different.
They're very different because you realize with a real life mentor, you realize, and I fully believe in having mentors, not just for adventure and in every area of my life. I have a mentor for business, I have a mentor for personal life, I have a mentor for finance, I have a mentor for different things. And the benefit of having a mentor is that you're talking to somebody who's already been through the same process, who knows the ups and downs when it comes to actually achieving the goal, comes to getting the fundraising as well. And you know, it's not an easy process. I think I would say even the fundraising is even harder than actually doing the training and actually doing the goal itself. And you go through so many rejections, and people like Bear, people like Nims, like Mustafa, like Alisa Humphreys, Jake Mayer, and Adriana Brownlee as well, who's a 21-year-old girl who's become the youngest woman ever to climb K2. People like that, and you have them when I speak to them regularly. You realize, you know, they're also going through the same cycle of ups and downs, and the glamorous stuff that you see on Instagram or whatever is not necessarily true, because everybody has ups and downs. Everybody goes through failures, and it's the people who can come out on top of their failures that really are the successful. I haven't met a single successful person who hasn't failed at something.
So how do you actually find these mentors, and once you find them, how do you actually establish a mentor-mentee relationship?
So, I mean, it depends. For me, I'm very lucky that I've been able to attend Cambridge, and Cambridge has opened a lot of doors for me. With Bear, I met him at the Cambridge Union, and then I asked him a question, and he liked the question, and then he followed me on Instagram and follows my story, and we kept in touch. With Mustafa, I was traveling in Jordan, and I saw his picture inside this famous museum in Jordan, and I asked my Jordanian friend about him, and then I actually just messaged him on Instagram, and we got talking and things that I would always say, just ask the question. If you want somebody to be your mentor, just ask them.
What do you ask them though?
You just you ask them.
Do you have to start? Do you have a list of do you tailor the questions towards their experience, or is it just whatever?
I mean, obviously you need to show them respect. You need to show that, you know, you've done your research, you know a bit about their story, and you tell them how your story is relevant to their story, and say that, you know, I want to do the same goal. What are the things you went through? Can you help me? And then eventually you know, they want to help you, you help them. it's a give and take thing, and people want to help you because Mustafa, for example, was washing dishes when he was 34. He was a waiter and he was a Palestinian Jordanian refugee. Came from a very 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 humble background, and now has a financially abundant life as an adventurer. I mean, he's currently training to run a marathon on every single continent in 7 days. So, pretty amazing guy.
What?
And you just in terms of the business mentor. In terms of the business mentors, I've been lucky because I'm at the business school, so they connect you with business mentors, etc. as well. So,
what has been one of the advice that one of these figures who you've really respected that they've given you, but you've disagreed on?
That's an extremely good question. I would say certain things, like for example, if you think that you can achieve something that that maybe they haven't achieved, or that they think that that it's not the right timing or something like that, you should push back. I think that's super important. Like one of the things my business mentor, or actually some of these people, I'm not going to name who and whatever, but well, I wanted to, one of my goals is to break the world record for the Adventurers Grand Slam. And one of them was, just take it slow and just do it one at a time. And I said, I could do it like that. But I also want to try to break the world record. So what I said was that I'm going to do it like you said. I'm going to do it one at a time. And then after that goal is over, actually try the record itself. And the mentor was like, actually, you know what? You're right. That might be a better idea. And the whole point of a mentor is not to just to listen to everything they say and for you to just do everything that they tell you. The whole point is to have an engaging discussion. Even with my business mentor at Cambridge, there's not everything, we don't agree on everything, but it's always positive though. The outcome is always positive because you challenge them, they challenge you, and you're supposed to grow from that relationship. Because it's not just you do what I say and that's it. People, you can disagree on things like the way things are done, how things are done, timing of things, which company you approach for sponsorship, how you approach them, whether you approach them for a speaking deal or a endorsement deal. There's a variety of things on how to do it. But like I said, it's having a mentor is critical because they have been through the same process.
Do you mentor anyone?
I mentor young children. I love helping kids. And the reason I like kids a lot is that they're unfiltered. They say what's on their mind. And whenever I travel, I always try to encourage and help children a lot. I go to schools and I give speeches and tell them my story and tell them that live adventurously and anything is possible. If you just set your mind to something and you have a goal and you're determined enough, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. And a lot of people reach out to me on Instagram, and I message them back personally, and I think that's super important to give back, and I love helping young kids.
Yeah, I mean, I asked that because I read that and very admirable efforts fundraising for underprivileged children for UNICEF and stuff, and maybe we can come back to that a bit later. But on that theme of your adventurous life, it's great to live adventurously. It's great to follow your passion and do all these things as most people want to do. But there is a element of reality in life where you got to fund yourself, you got a family, perhaps, So in another one of your interviews, it kind of mentioned an unconventional business model to monetize your adventures, and you have a 5-step model. I guess instead of me maybe reading it out, do you want to summarize it in your own words?
Very much so. I'm very happy to share that. So basically, there's a business model in which you can use to monetize your career as a self-employed individual or a solopreneur or an adventurer or an athlete or whatever. Essentially, if you can, the first step is obviously get a remote job. And I'll be starting my first remote job next year in Jan. Or you can do part-time work as well. A remote job is I would say the best way to do it. The second step is obviously a book deal. But obviously to get a book deal, you need to have already done some interesting things. And
which, for context, you have already written 30,000 words, so you're on track.
Exactly. So I've written 30,000 words of a draft copy, and then with the book deal, you can get paid a lump sum for the contract, and as well as royalties as well. Speaking gigs is another good way to do it. Obviously, you need to reach out to many companies and conferences and corporate and schools and etc. And they can pay you, and it's quite lucrative as well. It just depends on how you go about it. Social media marketing is another way of doing it. Social media marketing can help you cut down your costs. So basically, when you travel or this thing, you tell somebody like a hotel or a service or a product that if you wear their product or whatever, you will do some posts and stories about them, specify the number, and they'll give you the stuff for free. And airline tickets, that's another good way to cut down your costs for that. And obviously the fifth one, the big one, is obviously endorsement deals, where you tie up with companies like in the past I've been sponsored by Adidas and Red Bull, 2 banks and a private equity firm, but I got 5 sponsorship deals for the 7 continents, but I got 125 rejections. I got 120 rejections. I reached out to 125 companies and 5 said yes. So it's a matter of law of averages. Then another way of doing it is obviously you can. I'm also starting my own business, which is an adventure marathon running company, which wasn't in the article. But essentially, the business model is I take clients on a guided tour of a region. They run a marathon or a half marathon. So everything's provided, hotels provided, restaurants provided. They run a marathon or a half marathon in the middle of the week. They have a relaxing spa day after that. And then on the 5th day, they get their medals and the certificates at a local ceremony at a party. Essentially, and as a race director, they pay me a lump sum and I organize everything for them. So essentially, that's another good way of doing it because you can, it's like a lifestyle business. Essentially, really, you only have to work, the real peak hours of work is like, peak times of work is like 1 month before the race, maybe like 1 week after. So really, when I travel, I try to meet people and try to get permission and get permits and etc. It's about being clever. And then obviously the third way is obviously to have a normal job, and take a career break. That's a very sustainable way of doing it. I would say 80% of adventurers do it like that actually, because it's difficult to keep getting sponsorship deals and because the contracts expire, you have to renew them, you have to negotiate. It's complicated. Whereas you can get a job, take a career break, take a sabbatical, or do part-time work for a limited amount of time, and then figure out how to fund your lifestyle. It just depends. If you want something bad enough, you can do it. It just depends on how you want to do it.
I know that you had a previous experience in sales, which obviously involves a lot of rejection. And for me, I've been lucky enough, say in Australia, I hosted the Australia National Student Leadership Summit, where I called up thousands of schools to invite their school leaders, and in Cambridge with the union, sending out thousands of emails, and for their investment fund as well. But it is or even the telephone campaign that I did seeking donation, it's very disheartening of the amount of rejections that you get. But,
oh my God, yeah.
But I understand that it's a numbers game, that,
100%.
Law of averages and all of that. But when you reflect back at the successes, the sponsorships that you've got versus all the ones that you got rejected, were there any differences? And do you have 1 or 2 kind of little takeaways or insights, whether that's tested or not? But
100%. Number 1 is be personal. Make sure that you're reaching out to somebody like that, if you can network with them prior on LinkedIn, or you can network with them at a networking event. That's actually even better, because if you email info@company.com, you will probably not get a reply. Also, what one of my mentors said, always try to reach out to the person at the top if that's possible, because they are the ones who are making the decisions. And try to make your email and your sponsorship proposal as interesting and as brief as possible in the first email. And the whole point of the first email is not to get the deal. The whole point of the first email is to set up a meeting so that you can explain the deal. You can explain the project more either on a Zoom call or a meeting in person. And I think that should be the goal of the first outreach. Really is not to get money in the first meet, because nobody's going to do that. They want to see what you're about, see that you are actually capable of doing it, see that you're honest, you're genuine, and you're authentic, and then decide whether they want to sponsor you or not. Because and I would say, be personal and have a goal for the first email. Always do things with intention.
Thank you for sharing that. So for someone like you who are applying for so many different things, like travel grants, exhibition funding, book deals.
That's another thing as well, by the way, applying for travel grants. There's a lot of funding from travel grants that I did not know about until I came to Cambridge. But the Royal Geographical Society has a lot of travel grants, but you don't even have to be a member. You can just apply for them. And there's a lot of funding around the UK and Europe for these.
Well, Hassan, I would like to practice what you have just preached. And I found this really interesting person you sitting right in front of me.
Okay.
And I have this challenge with this podcast that is currently running a loss because I'm getting the guest coffee. As a mentor, so I would like to ask you whether you would like to be my mentor for the next 5 minutes. But
I'll try.
What advice would you give me if I'm looking to monetize this podcast?
So, I mean, I'm not sure with podcasts because I've never done it before. But from what I've seen from the other podcasts I've seen, they basically get big sponsorship deals. So you get a person to sponsor your podcast, and then you advertise them on your podcast. From what I've seen before, so you mentioned that this is the podcast by XYZ company, and you try to make it align with what you're talking about in the podcast. Like, for example, you do a lot of inspirational podcasts, so you should reach out to people who are in the same who have the same values as you, or things like that. So I would recommend reaching out to companies that you feel like your values align with their values. Like for me, for example, I would never reach out to a company that didn't have my values. I wouldn't reach out to a company that wasn't in the sports industry, or advertising something that goes against my values. I'm not gonna say anything, but like for an athlete, that the kinds of things that are good and that are bad. But I would reach out to companies that are in the same vein. So similar to you for your podcast. I would do the same thing, essentially.
Well, thank you for that. So you're currently 31, and by 35, you want to reach financial independence. What is financial freedom? Sorry, what does financial freedom for you actually mean?
So it means, and it's not just financial; it's time, location, and financial freedom. So time freedom is essentially being able to spend time with the people I like, doing the things I like, and location freedom is being able to live where I want and work where I want. And I think I've been able to achieve those two. Financial freedom is about being able to have the freedom financially to be able to travel where I want, to invest where I want, and things like that. I think I have a number in my mind that I want to reach, and I'm getting closer to that as I go. And I think it's super important to have a number and vision board it. When I applied to Cambridge, for example, David, I put a picture up of this little of the University of Cambridge, and I put a picture up of this little house that I wanted to live in, and essentially I'm here at Cambridge, and I'm living in that house, and it's a beautiful little house overlooking the river, It's on Chesterton Road, and I think that I can tell you another story if you want to hear it.
Go for it.
So basically, after I finished the Antarctic Ice Marathon, I felt extremely self-actualized. And I think that the most important asset is time and not necessarily money. And that definitely happened for me after I finished the race. Essentially what happened at that point is that I realized that no matter where you're born, no matter what circumstances you come from, no matter what your religion, your background, your financial health, financial whatever, the one thing that every human being is guaranteed is death. And if you think of time as the most important asset, then the question becomes, what are you going to do between now and the time you die to leave an impact, leave a legacy, and leave the world a better place than you found it? And that's why I came up with these five goals in 5 years formula. Essentially, the first goal at that time, I couldn't articulate it as well as I'm saying it now. But essentially, the first goal was to get a good education in Australia. Second goal was to become a dual Sri Lankan Australian citizen. Third goal was to become an Ironman. The fourth goal was to become the first Sri Lankan to run a marathon on every continent. Fifth one was to find my dream job, which is the one I told you about, which is the company that that I was living and working with in Sri Lanka and the Philippines. And I was able to achieve all of this in 4.5 years and not 5. And the reason that all of this happened is that I just wanted this so badly in my mind, and I failed up and down. So if you have that mindset, and I have another set of 5 goals. The first one was obviously getting to Cambridge. The second one was to live in this house that I do. And the people that I'm living with, one of them is going to win a Nobel Prize. The other one is going to win a Pulitzer. The other one wants to discover the cure for cancer. And then there's me who's doing this adventure athletic stuff.
Talented household.
The point is that these people, they're so brilliant and so high achieving and so exceptional. But at the same time, they're kind, they're warm, they're generous, they're humble, which is the most important thing. And I think that's what makes Cambridge so special, because you have these amazing people who are not just good at what they do, but they're good human beings. And I really, it's the ideal place to live. Like, I'm so happy. And I put a picture up, like I said. The next thing was obviously to climb Mount Everest and to travel to every country. And I've already visualized that. And then time, location, and financial freedom is the fifth goal. I've already visualized that. I think it's so important to keep reminding yourself every day that time is the most important asset.
One last question on
Sure.
the idea of financial freedom. I remember first being introduced to the idea of like passive income
Yes.
through like reading Rich Dad Poor Dad in
Yes,
high
yes,
school.
yes.
We've mentioned a few of like the book deals and stuff, but in order for you to achieve your goal by age 35, I don't need you to go into details, obviously, because it's a personal matter, but what kind of sources of income stream are you looking at?
So, I mean, the 5 that I mentioned.
Oh, those are the 5.
Yeah, and then the adventure marathon running company as well.
Okay.
And then maybe investing some of that in real estate and a variety of other things.
Okay.
As well, so.
Wow, so very impressive. I'm sure knowing you can already visualize achieving that, and and I'm sure you're going to get there. And it's going to. I think the process is also very enjoyable too,
exactly.
not just the
that,
goal
that,
of
that
getting
is the
there.
whole point of it, really.
Yeah, and I remember one of my favorite. I think maybe Bill Gates said it, but like we tend to overestimate what we can achieve in 2 years, but underestimate what we can achieve in 10.
Exactly.
And I'm sure when you look back 10 years ago when you were in Australia, you probably cannot imagine
I
all
could
the
not
things
imagine
that...
having this conversation with you. As much as I would have liked to visualize it.
I don't quite think this is the peak of your career.
No, but being able to talk about these things, you know.
Yeah. But however, when you started your career, though, you started in. I don't want to use the word ordinary, but ordinary in the sense that it is a more common path of starting a corporate job. So you were doing sales and stuff, and why did you go into a typical traditional corporate job?
Because I mean that was what I was conditioned to do, I guess, and I guess I mean growing up in Sri Lanka, I mean the entire pathway was you graduate school, you go to university, you get a job and you have family, kids, whatever. But I was very lucky to have met some incredible people in Australia, and in my heart I knew that I wanted to do something else. And when I worked in financial services, I was just bored of it, and then I quit, and I set up my mind to do the Ironman and a variety of other things. The one thing led to another. And I think it's just that leap of faith. If you really want something bad enough and you feel it in your heart, there is a way to make it happen. You might have to there are some sacrifices you have to make.
I guess like out of personal curiosity, I'm in my final year. I'm likely going to start a corporate job in London.
Yes.
Is it still good training? What are the pros and cons? And what kind of thought processes did you go through? And now that you're at where you are and, almost serving as a mentor again, with that perspective in mind, do you have any general observations or thoughts?
Yes. I mean, I think that, the company that you're going to work for and the role that you're going to do is fantastic, because that will give you the network professionally. That you could use that company to get a sponsorship for a podcast. Why not? I mean, they're big companies. So you should ask them. It'll give you an amazing professional network. It gives you discipline in terms of having to wake up in the morning every day, go to a certain thing, go to a certain place, being motivated, meeting a great professional network. And I think that and also it gives you the financial capital at the beginning to be able to do all these other things that you want to do as well. So I mean, you need, and I think that is where education and having a job is actually a good thing, because it gives you something to fall back on in case all of this fails. I know that I have a good education where I can work anywhere in the world if I want to.
So it'd be fair to say that you're against this extreme mentality of just drop everything and just pursue your passion. And you can do it.
I mean, I think that you need to be realistic about it. You need to, yes, I think it's important to go after your goals, but you also need to have like some kind of backup plan in case things go wrong or in case things don't work out. Because if you have a backup plan, you can always go back to that and then try again. But if you have nothing to fall back on, then what's going to happen, in case the things don't work out? Of course, you should be positive and believe that things can work out and go after things you want, like I mentioned, and like I have done. But even with the 7 continents, I had a backup plan in case I didn't finish a marathon. I knew that I could go back to the continent and do another one. Luckily, that didn't happen. I was 2 minutes away from that happening. But just in case, it's important to have a plan B. It's really important.
And I guess that's good advice for entrepreneurship as well,
Absolutely.
where kind of the media likes to sell these dreams of like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg dropping out of Harvard. But actually, take Bill Gates as an example. He had already negotiated with Harvard that had it not worked out, he could go back to school.
Yeah. And he came from a very good family as well. So
yeah.
He had that option as well. A lot of people don't realize that that the people who are like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and all of these people, they make up a very small percentage of the ones who actually are successful using that all or nothing route. Like you need to be able to think realistically and have some kind of backup option. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult because you like I said, you fail more than you succeed. So.
I understand what you said about, the transferable skills. And I mean, I personally feel it myself that, the kind of transferable skills like discipline, hard work, communication that I gained from like basketball also helps my music. It also helps my leadership roles.
Yeah.
But,
and you've done fantastic, by the way, David. I really admire you. Like you're doing well at university. You're a fantastic athlete. You have music. You like you said, you do music. You've taken on leadership roles. I think that's fantastic, and what you've been able to achieve is great. Really,
thank you so much. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. But I guess like, was there ever a moment as you in your kind of almost second career now that you face the challenge and you've managed to conquer it and you go, oh, now when I look back, the dots have connected, that at the time it was a horrible or unpleasant experience, but then without that experience, you wouldn't have been able to conquer it.
So many times. That happens to me daily, actually. I think about these things, like for example, whenever I've gotten rejected, in the moment it feels terrible, shitty.
Yep.
But I realize that, I always believe I'm a very positive person, like I mentioned. I think that everything happens for a reason. And I think that that's so important just to reiterate that. And I think it's also really important to be able to surround yourself with good people. Like my mentors, like one of my mentors at the business school, Tim, who's my business mentor. Whenever things have gone wrong, he always says, something better will come along, and that's a good mentality to have. I think it's important to surround yourself with good friends, family, mentors, and colleagues as well, who push you, but realize that failure is part of the process. And
we talked a bit about the importance of education, kind of upbringing, and you also mentioned in one of your other interviews that you wanted to put Sri Lanka on the map for something other than cricket, rugby, and tea.
Yes.
So I haven't been to Sri Lanka. Yeah. What are the other cultural things that it is known for? Like, give me the picture of what it's like to grow up in Sri Lanka.
Is my... I've been to over 65 countries now. And Sri Lanka is still my favorite. It's my home. I was born there. I'm very proud to be a Sri Lankan citizen. It's got such a diverse variety of things in terms of tourism. It's got amazing beaches. It's got beautiful tea country, where you have beautiful tea plantations in cute little cottages in the mountains. It's got leopard safaris where you can see leopards in the wild. You can see elephants in the wild and peacocks and a variety of things. You can see ancient ruins. It's got a 2,000-year-old history with kings and drama and castle with palaces and things like that. The Buddha's tooth is also there in the temple in Kandy. You've got and in the north you have Trincomalee, which is a beautiful seaside town. My mom is actually from the northwest of the country. My dad is actually from the capital in Colombo, and essentially my mom comes from an area where crabs are very famous. You can go and have Jaffna crab curry and then also you can do whale watching and dolphin watching as well. There's blue whales off the coast of Sri Lanka as well. So it's a diverse country with a lot of things to do. You need about 2 to 3 weeks. But I'm very happy to show you around if I'm there, if you come.
That would be wonderful. Yeah. I mean, I guess when I think about, children when they're born into circumstances, obviously nothing's deterministic, but it does influence their life chances and some of the decisions or perhaps personalities. And, I also know that you're passionate about, every kid deserving a good education. Yes. So for an average child who grows up in Sri Lanka, what is kind of the ideals of what they could become, if that makes sense?
It is not, I'll be completely honest with you, Sri Lanka does have a large income disparity. Okay. Most of the money is centered around Colombo. And I think that given that I have been able to travel and been able to spend time with people, I spent time with a Jordanian Bedouin in a cave. I spent the night in a cave with him and learned his lifestyle, and I've spent time with with underprivileged children in different parts of the world. I've realized over time that where you're born and those circumstances matter so much that determine the trajectory of your life, and that's why I do this fundraising for underprivileged children, because I think it's so important that every child has a chance to become to achieve what they want in their life, because what chance is a child born in a slum in India, for example, or a township in South Africa have a chance of achieving a happy life or a good life? And I think that's so important to just give them the options.
What did your parents want for you then when you were growing up?
Typical corporate career job, yeah.
Okay, stable job, good family.
Yeah. But I think that was unlike me. I wanted travel, I wanted adventure. I was always.
So was it hard to then pivot into this more?
Yes, of course. I got a lot of heat for it at the beginning. Like, what the hell are you doing? It was very difficult to convince them that I'm going to do this. But I think it's important to just be true to yourself and be true to your heart, and now they're like you can do whatever you want, basically.
Finally old enough.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're like, oh, you've achieved this, we believe it, it's not that they didn't believe in me, it's just that they were a bit afraid. I think that because
but I think, like we said on that practical component, we can also understand parents having that concern.
Exactly. And obviously I was trying to be the first in the country to be able to do this. There's nobody who's ever done this before. So I mean, I was lucky that the Sri Lankan media covered me nicely on TV and on news and all of that. But yeah, I did get a lot of heat at the beginning. It's like, I want to quit my job and do an Ironman.
What are one or two things that you look back now and you really, really want to thank your parents for?
Really, I mean, they're fantastic parents, to be honest. I mean, I love them very, very much. And my grandparents as well. I was very close to them growing up. They sent me. I have to thank them for a lot of things. I was able to go to a very good school. I was able to I was able to go to Australia and study as an international student.
In fact, when did you first think that you wanted to leave Sri Lanka for an education? Because it's quite far away to get to Australia.
Yeah, I mean, it was always the plan, basically, to be able to go overseas. I was fortunate enough to go to a school where the goal was to kind of go overseas and get an international education, etc. I'm self-funding for Cambridge though, and it's been a learning experience being able to do that as well. And I think that it's so important that I thank my parents even more now, because I realize how the opportunities that I've got is partly because of them as well. Yes, I have gone after things and done things, but I've been able to be helped by them when I was in Australia, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as we said before the interview, the kind of purpose of the podcast isn't for listenership or downloads or anything like that, but it's to give you a legacy-worthy interview, which means a piece of recording that captures a snapshot of who you are at the current moment, and you can look back in 10, 20 years. We've covered a lot from, your adventures, mentalities, kind of highs and lows, monetization.
You wanted to ask me about my diet as well.
Oh, that's correct, yeah. So you're a certified nutritionist as well.
I am, yeah.
When did you start that journey of becoming a nutritionist?
So basically I do... very good that you've done your research, actually.
Of course.
Very, very good.
Always.
I appreciate that. So I did this nutrition course in Sri Lanka, where I'm a certified personal trainer and nutritionist as well. So so my role at one of the companies is actually fitness director, where I trained clients and ran a high-end fitness enterprise for them. And the nutrition course I did as part of that, essentially. I did a course through the sports ministry in Sri Lanka, and I was able to become this thing. But in terms of my diet, how I do it, and how I've done it since like 2012 now, almost 10 years, and I've been able to maintain my health during this time. I don't follow a diet. I have 5 rules that I follow. The first rule is I eat 5 small meals a day, and they're usually equal size. And the second rule is that they're equal sizes of protein and carbs, and they're usually complex carbohydrates and lean protein. So like things like brown rice, brown bread, oatmeal, lean fish, lean beef, and lean and chicken breast, things like that. I also have a good mix of vegetables and fruits every single day as well. The third rule is that I eat every 2.5 to 3 hours. So the meals are spread out during that time. So during a 15-hour period, I'll have like 5 meals. The fourth rule is that I only season with low salt, sugar, sodium, and fat. So I don't cut them out. I think it's important to have desserts and things like that, but less frequently than otherwise. and then the fifth rule is that I do this 80-20% of the time. So 80% of the time I'll eat in this format, in this structure, and then 20% of the time I'll eat whatever I like.
So one of the problems I find with diet is I really appreciate the importance of it on our physical health, our mental attitudes, etc. But there is so much information online that I don't even know where to get started. So how were you able to basically ignore my language but sort through the bullshit?
Yeah. I mean, it's quite simple. Just stick to the basics, essentially. I mean, there's so many things out there. There's so much out there. There's a vegan diet. There's a vegetarian diet. There's now the liver diet. There's like the meat only diet. I don't think that it's important. I think it's important to find a lifestyle that fits you. If all diets work, the low carb, keto, the Atkins diet, they all work. But can you sustain that for a lifestyle? Can you sustain that for 10-15 years? You need to find the foods that you like, prepare them in a way that you like, and be able to find a way to be able to, can you sustain it for 5 years, 10 years eating this way? Because you can go on a diet and the diet will work for 2-3 months. And then what happens when you get off it? You'll put the weight back on again. So you need to be able to find a way that, I grill most of my food. I use an air fryer, which is actually quite I think a genius invention, because essentially you can have all your food fried, but there's no oil in it, which is excellent. And the way that I portion control is that I eat my carb and protein sources are fish size, so I try to do that on the plate. And I have a pizza from time to time. I go off for desserts from time to time. When I'm always traveling, so I have to eat what's available in the country when I travel. I love eating the local foods and stuff, but I'm mindful. Like I know how to balance it.
When it comes to finance or diet, when you read people's biographies or autobiographies, oftentimes people reflect upon that when they're young, they can get away with not warming up or spending a lot of money, not saving, not investing, not eating properly. Are there one or two key mistakes that you have seen people make when they're young and later on regret, and how could people avoid those traps?
In terms of diet or finance?
Diet.
But eating a lot of junk food, drinking a lot of soft drinks, and alcohol is a big thing as well.
And then in terms of finance?
In terms of finance, I would say I would say in your 20s. Like for me personally, I know there's a lot of finance gurus who may say something else, but for me personally, I think that when you're in your 20s or 30s, that is the time of your life when you should actually try different things, because you don't have to. If anyone tells you they have their life figured out in their 20s, they're either A, lying, or B, they don't even
realize
they're not pushing themselves hard enough. So really, it's about being able to travel. I would say travel as much as possible when you're young, in your 20s. So take risks. Start that. You start a podcast, which is fantastic. And the way that you're interviewing me, I'm sure that you will do well in this. And I hope that this goes well for you and becomes a monetizable platform. And I think it can be. But do those things that give you that are scary, that are difficult. For me, I wouldn't say yes, have some savings, have some investments, but don't look at that. Don't think of retirement or retirement plan in your 20s and 30s. I know that's against what the finance people say, but I think that it's important to enjoy your life. And really, like I said, time is the most important asset and not money, because you don't know when you're going to die. What happens if you get run over by a car the next day? You need to be able to find something that you enjoy and do the things you like. And then when you're 30, then you can start getting a little more serious about things, when you have the life experience.
Thank you. And of course, none of us are qualified to give financial advice. And if you're listening, do make your own judgment.
Yes, exactly. I'm not, just to caveat that, I'm not a financial advisor. So this is just my personal opinion.
Any other key things that you want to be included in this recording? I mean, we've touched on a lot of different areas.
Sure. In terms of the message that I want to share with your listeners is essentially live adventurously, and anything is possible. Really go after what you want, go after your dreams, believe in yourself. And like I said, living adventurously doesn't necessarily mean you have to climb a mountain or run a marathon or do an Ironman or travel to every country. It just means that you have to go outside your comfort zone And anything is possible if you set your mind to it. You just got to believe in yourself and do things.
Usually my final question is, what's one message, quote, or saying you wish every educator would promote and every child would internalise? But you've already said it, so I'm going to have to think of two other final questions. But any other thing you want to say before I've got two questions to conclude?
I've said it, yeah.
Okay.
I've said the message that I want to share, essentially.
This might be me anticipating or trying to draw connections that may not be there, but in your article, it's mentioned like that at difficult moments, after you vomited 7 times, and then you completed the bike ride for the Ironman, and you still have 42 kilometers to run ahead.
Yeah.
And then you prayed, and then throughout our conversation, you've also mentioned things like faith and universal laws and all of that kind of stuff. And I was wondering, are you religious? Are you spiritual?
Yes.
Do you mind elaborating a bit more?
Yes, I am religious. I'm Muslim. I believe in Islam. But I think that it's so important to. You don't necessarily have to have a religion. You don't have to be believe in God or anything. But I think it's important to have. For me, I think having faith has been so important. I think that having that knowing that that prayer and meditation and visualization combined with the practical things that I do really has made a difference. Because like you said in the Ironman, there were many points where I thought I'm not going to make it, and I looked up to God and I prayed and I said, help me. And then little things happen, little miracles happen along the way. Like somebody came on a bike and was like, "Oh, we'll get you to the next pit stop," or like in the Inca Trail, when I twisted my ankle 3 times, I found a place where I could get soup, and I could like have the soup, and then I could like heal my body a little bit, and then go on for the next bit. And my watch actually died during that time, so I had no way to measure my progress, and I just ran as fast as I could, and I got to the gate 2 minutes ahead. So things like that, little things happen. I think it's I don't think that I'm not saying that if you that you have to have faith in order to succeed, but for me it has definitely helped.
I'm going to add one more quick question. So the second to last question is, and you might not want to share, which I would totally appreciate, but what would be the title of your memoir or book?
I'm gonna keep that to myself. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess final question then. What is the one thing that when you're 50, so you're currently just into your 30s, when you're 50 or 60, that had you not done or achieved at that point, you would really regret?
I don't think I have any regrets, to be honest, because like I said, you're saying if I've not done it in my 50s or 60s.
Yeah, so when you're looking back on your life at 50, 60, is there anything that you really want to say, I have done it, or I've achieved it, or... Yeah, just...
I don't think I would have any regrets at that point, because I am not the kind of person to have regrets even now. I've never really been that kind of person to like look back and think, oh, I should have done it like this. I just think that everything happens for a reason. And I think that is the mentality of an abundant person, because I think that it's so important to... Because, David, the thing is, I've always gone after what I wanted. Whether that has been, applying for a job or applying for a grant or applying for something, I've always tried. Even if I've gotten rejected, even today I got a rejection on my email for something, but I didn't care, because it just was like, I just realized it's just part and parcel of the game. Really, it's just, I just go after what I want, and then things happen. So I think that it's important. If you try and fail, it's better than not trying and never knowing. And that if you have that mentality, you generally don't have any regrets, really. Well, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I've always tried to atone and apologize, and I would rather take the chance, try the thing, and then if it doesn't work, it's okay. Yeah.
Well, Hassan, I guess thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience. I remember first meeting you in the union, and then we messaged a bit as you were going for president of the Cambridge University Mountaineering Society,
Expedition Society.
Sorry, and you got that, and I was very happy for you, and I appreciate your messages here and there, kind of congratulating me and supporting me on things, and yeah, it's just great to grab coffee and kind of hear from the man himself who has done so much. And
thanks a lot.
I think your attitude of optimism and adventurers and just taking the bold risks is very inspiring, and it's something that I think I'll be thinking a lot tonight and also heading into 2023. It's just been so great to hear from you, and thank you for your honesty.
Thanks a lot, David. I appreciate it. Thanks for the interview.